Okay, so I noticed recently on YouTube there are some guides that relates chords and modes to specific emotions, such as major is happy, minor is sad, and mixolydian is hopeful. Some even go into detail, like this fascinating recent video of one of my colleagues, Pure Pasteur, in which he presents different types of emotions attached to specific chord progressions. It's certainly understandable that we try to put words onto musical elements, since music is one of the most abstract art form there is. And one way for us to try and understand it is to put labels on it. Moreover, this is not something new. Composers and music theorists have been attempting to put words on their musical systems for hundreds of years. This quote is from Charles Coquelin, which was an accomplished composer, teacher, and music theorist. Chords are not mere constructions of sound, they are emotional statements. But what if I told you this was all just a giant lie? Well, not like a complete lie, but bear with me and buckle up. The simple example to begin with is major versus minor. Just take any song in major, transform it into minor, and you get a sad song. Frère Jacques, dormez-vous. Frère Jacques, dormez-vous, dormez-vous. It's like Brother Jacques died or something. Well, isn't it obvious now, Alex? Brother Jacques is dead, so modes and chords emotion are real. But wait, I have a question for you. I often think about aliens, you know? Especially when I'm at a concert. So at the end of the show, people stand up, they clap, they applaud. And I always imagine aliens watching us and thinking, what the hell are they doing? What is this? Yet for us humans, it's completely normal. Just like the fact that Frère Jacques is sad in minor. So my question for you, do you think aliens from another galaxy will listen to these two versions, the major and the minor version of Frère Jacques, and be able to tell which emotion belonged to which? Imagine they had ears and were built a little bit like we are, but live by different social and cultural standards. Oh, social and cultural standards. Oh no, Alex, are you saying that we are conditioned to think that major is happy and minor is sad? Oh no, all these YouTube videos I followed, I trusted, am I part of the lie now? Alex, what should I learn then? Do you have anything for me? Yes, that's the point of this video. So I don't know if you've heard about Balinese gamelan music, a traditional music from Indonesia. There are different types of traditional gamelan in Indonesia, each representing a unique combination of mostly percussive instruments, pitch gongs and metallophones, for example. Now in this piece we hear the gamelan gong kebia, which has a very dynamic and virtuosic repertoire. The 5-note mode used here can roughly be transposed in occidental notation as C sharp, D, E, G sharp, and A. At first glance, this might remind you of a minor chord, or even the Phrygian scale. Then there's another type of gamelan, the angklung. The angklung ensemble, with its smaller instruments, uses a pentatonic mode that we can round up to something like G, A, B, D. A mode closer to a major chord scale. So what emotions does these two different ensembles with these different set of modes evoke? At first you might assume that the gong kebia, which is mode is more reminiscent of a minor chord, might sound sad, and the angklung on the other side, which is major-like mode, sound happy. Well, in fact, it's quite the opposite. In Balinese culture, the angklung is associated with funerals. It's a music of mourning, whereas the gong kebia is associated with ceremonies, gatherings, concert. Some of these performers are like actually real rock stars there. So I think I was thinking earlier about something like social and cultural standards. Well, now for another example, black metal. For me, black metal makes me happy. Yes. It's a music that I listened to as a teenager, so when I listen to this, it reminds me of this period of my life. You know, I was happy, I had all the time in my life, and now I have kids and, you know, no time, and my life is miserable. No, I'm kidding. I love my kids, but my hair getting gray, so black metal makes me happy. Anyway, black metal is a happy and comfort place for me, but it's weird when you think about it because it's a genre that use so many minor chords. It's like only minor chords. This and the occasional diminished chord. Because they generally like worship the devil. And of course, aggressive and screaming vocals. So here, not only social and cultural standards come into play, but personal experience is huge. This is to show you that a music that can sound desperate and full of anger to someone might sound exhilarating and joyful to another. Now we're talking about the personal experience. So in a broader way about the context, right? So does that mean that I could present a major chord in a certain chord progression that in the context, it would make it sound sad? That sounds like a challenge for the composer in me. Come on, let's try this! There's something with that chord progression. We have A, B, and E. So we got a fifth and a major second here, creating this unusual chord. So that's the first one. And then the second one is also this kind of effect, but we have A flat, D flat, and E flat. But instead of a second, there's a fourth in there. That resolve onto an A flat major chord. But the fact that we have in this middle line the B that goes up, D flat, C, and back to the B, creates this kind of, you know, we're going down. It's not gonna end up well, you know. So in this progression, we could say that this A flat major, of course, if we stop on it, we realize, oh, maybe this is happy, this happy sound, but no. And especially if you start to cycle this, it will feel like, you know, we're stuck in the kind of loop of chromatism. And chromatism going down usually means that, you know, somebody's dying somewhere. Now, of course, it's just one example. And I'm not saying that there are no obvious way that the major chord will add a certain light. A certain light. Where's my light? Here, certain light. Wait, I'll get back to this afterwards because I think it's important. So yes, let me get back here. So then let's see the counter example. Let's see some chord progression where the major chord is clearly hopeful or bringing a certain brighter side to our progression. Well, obviously, if you get a bunch of major chords together, they're gonna feel good. And especially if you're stuck with this super dark chord here. Wait, a dark chord? Bright, light, dark? I'll get back to this afterwards. But let's try something else that makes all of this a little bit less obvious. It's not so clear here, it may be just the performance, but these are just two major chords and they should sound happy, but together, since like there's a kind of little modulation, it's a little bit awkward. So you see that the context in which the chords are presented can really create a different effect, and thus making this emotion associated to a certain chord a little bit less obvious. And I would bet that the same problem can occur with modes and the emotion associated with them. Okay, so if these grids about chords and emotion don't quite work perfectly, is there something more universal, a guide if you will, that will tell us how to create emotions in music? Well, first off, these grids on YouTube aren't worthless. They're just generalization that works within the context of Western classical music, the system on which most pop music, film scoring, whatever music you hear nowadays is based on. This is, of course, in the North American culture, and I would say in most European culture, but even in some popular styles in the Latin countries, but also in Asia. But as a composer and arranger, I believe that there is something much more universal, and it all starts with our ears. Okay, now I feel like singing. Oh man, that was horrible. I'm sorry about that. So what felt off here? The music is beautiful. We have a bunch of major chords that's supposed to be happy, right? Here a minor chord, but before that is all major. Clearly I'm not the great of a singer as Celine Dion, and of course, yes, I'm also singing a cappella with no accompanying instruments, no color behind me. Yes, it's true that the arrangement makes the music sound so bright and colorful. Bright, colorful, brightness, darkness. Oh, yes, I'm finally getting to my point here, and it's about damn time. Many of you who follow my channel know that I am passionate about orchestration, arrangement, and sound designing, the art of modeling a sound's timbre. So when I approach orchestration, there's the horizontal aspect, which deals with musical material like motifs, themes, chords, etc. But one of my greatest obsession is the vertical aspect of orchestration, the way you balance different instruments together, which I love to describe as the balance of brightness and darkness. Higher register instruments like trumpets, flutes, violins are perceived as bright. In contrast, medium to low register instruments, cellos, trombones, bassoons are perceived as dark. Think of it this way, the instruments that play lower notes, well, these lower notes, they tend to be more complex harmonically, which leads to a sense of dissonance, which make the sound feel darker. Conversely, higher instruments that can play higher notes have less perceivable harmonics, making them sound clearer and brighter. And these are not subjective facts, like this chord creates this emotion. It's an acoustic principles that all our ears can perceive, all our human ears. And here's where this idea of brightness and darkness gets very interesting with modes. Some modes are considered brighter or darker based on their interval structure and how they interact with our perception of timbre. For example, the Lydian mode, with its raised fourth, is often seen as bright and ethereal, while the Locrian mode, with its diminished quality, feels dark and unstable. So instead of talking about modes in terms of emotions, one compelling approach is to discuss modes in terms of brightness and darkness. So what if we would start to think more about music in terms of brightness and darkness, creating a clear link between, on one side, modes, chord structure, intervals, and on the other side, orchestration and sound designing. Could this be a more reliable way to evoke emotion? I think it's an exciting concept that highlights the importance of learning your craft, your technique, and your knowledge of your different creative tools, instead of only relying on chord and mode theory in music, which is so subjective. So if all these grids about modes and emotions don't completely work, what do we do? It's important to understand that the only universal guide might actually be the acoustic of sound itself. All human ears are biologically the same, so that means that there are fundamental ways that we hear brightness, darkness, and timbre. So in the end, our ears are the best guide in creating and perceiving emotions in music. So that means learn your craft, experiment with orchestration, sound design, and try different combinations of sound together. And remember that the emotions that we ascribe to chords and modes might totally vary from one listener to the other, even though the basic principles of acoustics are shared by all of us. So what about you? Is there a specific chord progression that always moves you? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this exploration, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.